I still remember the first moment I saw him, the creature who would change everything I believed about monsters, curses, and the thin line between fear and compassion. His enormous shadow swallowed half the dungeon wall as he stepped into the flickering torchlight, claws dripping with cold water, breath rising like winter fog. I wasn't scared for myself. I was scared because behind him, chained to the stone floor and barely conscious, was my father. The creature stared at me with eyes that weren't quite human, but they weren't heartless either, as if something inside him recognized me from a dream he wished he'd never had. My name is Alara, and I grew up at the edge of a village that always said I was too soft for the world. My mother died when I was 6, leaving my father to raise me with tenderness the village never understood. People whispered that I was strange, fragile, too dreamy, too quiet. They didn't understand that softness wasn't weakness. It was simply the way I survived. But my father was my world. He worked harder than any man should have to, carrying the weight of our small life quietly and with love. During one harsh winter, the village turned against him when the mayor accused him of hiding food. He didn't defend himself. He rarely fought back. He just lowered his head and kept working. But I saw fear settle in his eyes like a shadow. Then, one morning, he left for the next valley to seek work. When night came and he still hadn't returned, dread crawled into my bones. By the next day, I searched the woods myself, calling his name until my throat was raw and icy. By the third day, I heard a howl that didn't sound animal or human, something caught in between pain and rage, and I ran home trembling. When his horse returned without him, with deep claw marks on the saddle and blood on its mane, I knew something terrible had taken him. I packed a lantern, a piece of bread, my mother's scarf, and the knife my father once gave me. Then I walked alone into the forest everyone feared. Deep within the woods, fog wrapped around my legs like hands trying to pull me back. Trees leaned inward as if warning me. And then I found it, a castle so broken it looked like a skeleton made of stone. Thunder rolled as if urging me to turn back. But a daughter searching for her father does not run from thunder. I entered the castle and followed the faint sound of chains echoing beneath the floors. Down twisting staircases, through darkness thick with damp air, I found my father, chained and unconscious on the cold ground. That was when the beast appeared. He asked why I was there, voice trembling between a roar and a whisper. I told him I came for my father. He replied that my father trespassed and that the penalty was imprisonment. I begged him to let my father go. The beast hesitated, and for a moment, something almost human flickered in his eyes. He told me he too was desperate to survive. When I insisted on taking my father home, he growled that if I left with him, my father would die. But if I stayed, my father would live. My knees shook, my heart broke, but my father stirred and whispered for me to run. I held his hand and promised him he'd go home. And then I looked at the beast and agreed to stay. He kept his word. My father walked out of that castle alive, and I watched him disappear into the forest one last time before the beast led me deeper into my new prison. My room was surprisingly warm, with glowing fire and a balcony overlooking the forest, but no comfort could hide the truth. It was still a cage. The beast left the door unlocked, telling me I could roam the castle, but warning me that the forest wasn't safe, not from monsters outside or the monster inside him. That night, I heard him pacing outside my door, stopping, sighing, starting again. A lonely creature afraid to knock. In the morning, I found breakfast left gently at my door. When I walked to the balcony, I heard chains clatter below. The beast was in the courtyard, training like a soldier fighting memories rather than enemies. His movements were powerful but full of grief. When he collapsed onto his knees, clutching his chest, whispering an apology to his mother, something inside me shifted. Monsters didn't apologize. Broken men did. Later, I found him in the library, staring at a torn portrait of a young prince and his mother. When I told him she was beautiful, he tensed. I asked if he hated me for being here. He asked if I hated him. I said I didn't know him well enough to hate him, but he terrified me. He admitted he was good at taking choices away from people. I asked who cursed him. He said someone he loved. That was when I realized his cruelty wasn't born, it was shaped. As days passed, he softened. He walked slower when near me, kept his distance, lowered his voice, and tried so hard not to frighten me. We began talking during dinners, always far apart at opposite ends of the long table. He listened to stories about my mother, my childhood, the woods. He shared bits of his past, the castle before the curse, the music rooms he could no longer enter without shaking, the gardens his mother once tended, the loneliness that ate away at him long before the curse did. Slowly, fear turned into understanding. One night, the castle was wrapped in heavy darkness. I wandered into the abandoned garden, breathing in the scent of wild roses. The beast found me there and warned I shouldn't be alone. I asked if he was warning me or himself. He froze. I stepped closer, heart pounding. I asked why he kept avoiding me if the curse twisted his loneliness. Why did he back away every time I got close? He whispered that he couldn't risk hurting me, even by accident. His eyes burned, his breath shook, claws trembled. He grabbed his head and begged me to run, but I refused. I held his shaking hands even as the curse fought to consume him. He begged me to run again. I said no. With my hands on his, I whispered that I wasn't leaving him. He collapsed onto his knees, trembling with sobs he'd held inside for years. "Why are you still here?" he whispered. I brushed his face gently and said, "Because you're not the monster you think you are." After that night, something deep changed. He stopped walking ahead of me and instead walked beside me. He tried to sit at the dinner table politely, even though chairs were too small for him. He lit candles for me, opened doors quietly, and carried books from the highest shelves with awkward gentleness. He was learning to be human again, and I was learning how much a heart could soften without breaking. But the curse still hung over us, tightening whenever he felt too much. One evening, he showed me the torn spellbook explaining his curse. It said that only true understanding of the heart could break it. Not love, not pity, but real understanding of the man beneath the monster. If no one understood him, he would remain cursed forever. He led me to a cracked mirror that held his memories. When he touched it, the mirror glowed and revealed his past. I saw a lonely prince raised without warmth, a mother trying desperately to guide him, a boy whose fear of losing love made him controlling, angry, and cold. I saw the night he broke her heart, the moment she died in his arms, and the spell she cast with her last breath, to make him feel the pain he caused others. I watched him crumble under regret. When the vision ended, he told me I could leave now that I knew everything. I shook my head and stepped closer. I said I wasn't leaving because he wasn't that prince anymore. I touched his cheek and he froze, breath trembling. I told him he was human. He whispered that he didn't deserve to be touched like one. I told him he did, and at that moment, something inside him cracked. Light burst through the room. The wind shook the castle. The mirror shattered. The curse screamed and then broke like glass falling from the sky. When the light faded, a young man lay on the floor. No fur, no claws, no horns. Just trembling hands and golden eyes filled with tears. He looked up at me and whispered, "You broke it." I told him he had broken it himself. I had only seen him clearly. His true punishment had never been the curse. His real punishment was believing he deserved to be alone. And breaking that belief was the sweetest justice of all. Weeks later, we walked back to my village. My father cried when he saw me, hugging me so tightly I felt the life he thought he'd lost. When he learned the truth, he laid a gentle hand on the prince's shoulder and said, "You took her, and she brought you back." The prince bowed his head and promised he would spend the rest of his life earning that forgiveness. And he has, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet acts that rebuild a soul, listening, healing, caring, learning. As for me, I learned that sometimes revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's breaking the darkness inside someone who forgot how to be human. Sometimes the best revenge is turning a curse into redemption. If this bittersweet journey touched your heart even a little, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change if someone finally understands them? More long, emotional stories are coming soon.